Okay, good morning, everyone. It's Ron. Saturday morning, January 4th. Let us begin by seeing if we have any questions. Anything that you want to discuss, anything grab your attention, any questions you may have. No questions on a Saturday? Okay. Well, in that case, then, there's something I'd like to discuss. If you would, please look at Exodus chapter 1 with me. Exodus chapter 1. Exodus chapter 1. If nobody has any questions or comments, if you're getting on a bit late, do you have any questions? Okay. Um, you've heard me say this before. I usually meditate on or try to, much as I can. If Pastor doesn't have anything or one of you guys have something, what is it we're to look at? What is it we're to discuss? And whether it's scriptures or something else out that's not that we don't pull from the book because all of it is spiritual. Whether it's not we get it from the book or not, it's all spiritual. So this kind of jumped out at me. And two things that jumped out at me was that first verse, which I want to talk about in a minute. Exodus chapter 1 says, "Now these are the names of the sons of Israel who came out of Egypt with Jacob. They came each one with his household." So the thing that jumped out at me with that is Egypt and Jacob, excuse me, Israel, not Egypt, Israel and Jacob are one and the same. So why is it worded that way? So that got my attention. And then I was looking at, let's find it, verse 15 as I read this. And it says, "Then the king of Egypt spoke to the Hebrew midwives, one of them whose name was Seph, Sephra, and the other one was Puah. And the name Puah to me uh, reminded me of Ptah. So I went down a rabbit hole trying to look at that and see if there was a correlation there. And I could not find one. But that name just kind of stuck out to me. So when I read this and pulled all this together, it was a bunch, a lot of information in here that I thought was worthy of our attention. And again, uh, I think it speaks to who and where we are now and what we are dealing with. So, uh, the first one, the first verse, though, this to me, just to kind of sum this up, to tell you where I'm going with this. This is an attempt to destroy African masculinity and why that cannot be done and what happens in the event of that and where that leaves us right now, the roles of the midwives and the role of femininity in all of this. So that's kind of what I was hoping to look for in this. I invite you, especially the teachers, facilitators, whatever you see in this, help me explain and of course, whatever more you see, pull it out, please. But that first verse, in any questions so far? Any questions before I get into this? Comments?
Sure. Hey,
Yes.
everybody. Good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
Um, when you say it's about an attempt to destroy masculinity, is there a specific part you're referring to, or just this whole?
African masculinity, when it tells the midwives to kill the babies,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
when it tells the midwives to kill the all the babies that are being born. And I didn't get into that, Nick, but that's further down into the story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Good question. Anyone else? Okay. These are the names of the sons of Israel who came out of Egypt with Jacob, and they came each one with his household. So, as we have studied this and looking at this from a spiritual perspective, we're not so much looking at this historically. So, this is not talking about a historical journey that took place with a family. This is talking about a spiritual transformation. This is talking about a spiritual transformation, whereas you wrestle with yourself, that you understand that I have been taught that God is something from a distance. God is something that is not obtainable. God is something that is absent from me. And when I have that aha moment and I realize, my God, the thing that I've been seeking is me. I've been running to this and trying to find this all of my life, but I see now that I'm alone, that this thing that I have wrestled, this thing that I have struggled with, uh, is being me all along. So he grabs and this is not, these are his thoughts, these are internal thoughts. This is not, I'm wrestling with an angel, as we've been taught that angels are. I'm wrestling with the thinking. I'm wrestling with these thoughts that are running through my head, and I'm fighting it because I'm trying to hold on to my religious beliefs, and this kind of upsets everything that I thought was truth, what truth looks like. That's the wrestling portion of it. So it says that came up out of Egypt with Jacob. In other words, I was Jacob first, and I was in that religious state. I was in that cramped space because I recognized the God of Abraham. I recognized the God of Isaac, and I recognize now that I've seen that clearly, that that is not who I am. Everybody has to see this for themselves. Everybody has to make that own turn. Everybody has to make that own commitment to themselves. So that is where the meditation leads us. And I didn't go into Genesis 32 where he wrestles with the angels, but I just wanted to bring that in, that why he talks about Israel and Jacob in the same breath here, because Israel talks about when God prevails. When there is a spiritual change with it. Israel is made up of two words, El meaning God, and Sarah meaning to contend with or to strive, or to be persistent. So this has been a journey for all of us. Individually and collectively, we continue on this journey, and we see ourselves in the midst of what's going on in the land, in the midst of what's happening all around us. Anybody just join us? I'm looking at Exodus chapter 1, okay? And we're talking about that first verse. Why does it talk about Israel and Jacob and in the same breath there? So any questions and or comments on anything we've said so far?
Yeah. Good morning. Just that the when we say struggling or wrestling with God or wrestling with the Creator, that is the internal process that you must go through that leads to the realization that you and the Creator are one and the same being. It is in part the learning to let go of the what we all do, which is sort of on some level wish that something or someone would come to save us. And it is the recognition that it is we who are meant to learn, however long it takes, how to save ourselves. Because that is the part of the purpose for which we find ourselves here in the first place, is to learn how to be creators similar to our Creator. And part of that process is dealing with everything that comes up within us and that we experience as we go through this material experience, and seeing how it contradicts with our beliefs or our religious beliefs about sort of who and what is supposed to be responsible for our own situation. And in the religious sense, that responsibility is sort of external. In the spiritual sense, is internal. It is us. So anyway, thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Nick. Anyone else? It is us. It indeed is us. So, and I didn't want to go through this verse by verse, but when it talks about it, it then names the sons, and as it goes through the sons, the all verse 5 saying all the persons who came from the loins of Jacob were 70 in numbers. Again, that number 70 is significant, which we'll come back to. But when it names the sons, as Nick just said about this struggle, these sons represent the struggle that you go through. Each one of them is a characteristic of who we are. In a sense, and it doesn't mean that we all go through them in the same order or in the same way, but it is a part of your struggle to sometimes have doubt, sometimes wonder if this is real, sometimes even say to ourselves, is this really me? Would God really do this to me? Why me? Kind of thing. Sometimes recognizing, as some of the sons did, they did things that did not seem so godly. There are times when out of anger we may be vindictive. There are times that you are destroy somebody's character because of your anger. But all of these are part of the strife. All of it is part of the growth. And although we beat ourselves up because of it, this describes our journey. And all of this had to take place to bring us to where we are now. Because I don't think that we fully see where we are now and how we are to have an impact on humanity from this perspective. So the sons here, these names represent the journey. The 70, again, is just tenfold seven, all right? It is saying here that you have reached, when you recognize this, when you see that the beauty of it is seeing that I may be in a position to prevail with God, but I do not forget that I was Jacob. The Jacob is still there. That's the part that humbles you. The Jacob is still there. And I recognize that I wasn't always human, but I've transformed from my animalistic survival and selfishness and greed and vindictive self. I moved from that portion of who I am to being a human and seeing myself. And now I'm moving on to become something even more divine. This is talking about a transformation that only the human can go through. And who has dared to take this journey? Okay? So that's what the sons here represent. That's what the seven represent. The seven says, I am full. I understand this. I am at capacity and I'm ready to see this. I appreciate my experiences and where it has brought me. And it's these experiences that will be the fuel, to carry me further and to be the strength of what I am to see and what I am to do. So it says that uh, they got there and Joseph, excuse me, was already there. Uh, and Joseph dies. Now, again, as we look at this, Joseph dying is very significant to us. It appears,
Ron,
yes, ma'am.
excuse me, is it Jacob or Joseph you're talking about?
Did I say Joseph? Jacob? I meant Joseph. I apologize. Verse 6.
So, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
No, thank you. I get a little excited and I kind of mix up names. Sorry. That is very significant. Joseph means to increase, to have increase. And as you see in the next verse says, and the sons of Israel will fulfill and increase greatly and multiplied and were exceedingly mighty, so that the land was filled with them. So you look at this and you say, this is a good thing. Joseph was here, and Joseph opened a door for us to survive. Joseph opened the door for us to thrive. Joseph in us, we see the increase because of what we become aware of. Our awareness changes. We are able to see and desire things, and we see things change. But it also represents that point of doubt. It says that Joseph died. So you get to a point where the thing that you see increase, it looks like when a great thing that here I am in Egypt and my family is thriving, but it comes to a halt. It comes to a halt when they are enslaved, and it comes to a point where you stop and say, well, did I see that right? Am I seeing this right? This is not happening the way I thought it would. This is not happening the way I pictured all of this to happen. So what is going on here? And it causes you to back up and take another look at who you are. What is going on? What is happening here? And it is at that point that you realize, excuse me, that it is no more an individual journey. This is not about Ron. The slowdown is to realize that I now stand in the gap for mankind. I see who I am. I see that I am a nation. I see that this is a community thing. This is not, Ron has gone through the transformation. He has wrestled and he has an understanding of who he is. But now the halt comes that Ron is no longer Ron. Ron is the mouthpiece. Ron is the midwife. Ron is the one who stands in the gap for the nation. Ron is the one who looks for answers and prays and says, who else sees something here because I don't see anything? Lord, help us. When you move to the point where it's not just an individual thing and not just you anymore, but you see the more, and it makes you that much more humble. It brings out that much more of your desire to see truth and to have an understanding of who and what you're supposed to do. Questions or comments, y'all?
Yeah. Just to add on to what you said, as you move through the Old Testament, you see the progression.
Yeah,
There's new generations coming into being, old generations dying off. That is the transformation of self that you were just speaking of, Ron. It is the dawning of new sort of awareness or consciousness and identity within your sense of self as you progress through the journey that this is describing, which is a mix of internal and external, but everything that is external is a projection or an extension of what is internal. Thank you.
thank you. You guys, is it okay? Making sense?
Yes. Good morning, Ron. Good morning, everyone. This is GC in Philly. And Ron, you were introducing us to Exodus. I thought about, the meaning of Exodus where it talks about a way out. And what does that mean to us today as we now, have our first, I guess, Saturday of the new year? And what I'm meditating on is to be able to know that I am Elohim. And I know you spoke about it last Monday, the meaning of no, yada. And so I think all of this have relevance in terms of us coming into the knowledge of not just learning, but knowing and doing. So I think that, it's appropriate that we can have, an understanding of what the biblical text is sharing with us, but at the same time, being still and knowing that we are Elohim. So I just wanted to share those thoughts because I think it's just an appropriate time for us to, have this understanding. And my last point is when you mention the word 7, it talks about the importance of divine vibration. What is our vibration collectively as
Yeah,
one? And so those thoughts I just wanted to share this morning. Thanks.
thank you. And I'm sorry.
And just one more comment following what George said. Good morning, family.
Morning.
One of the names that Exodus used to be given in terms of Hebrew is Sefer Yetziat Mitzrayim, the book of departure from Egypt. And so, as you guys have already been talking about, it talks about these are the pages of our own internal departure from that cramped space, from that position of thinking that we were an enslaved person, enslaved by our own desires, and enslaved by our own selfish thoughts, enslaved by whatever captures us and kept us from becoming and knowing and becoming aware that we aren't slaves, we are gods. And so Israel, the Exodus, the name that they talked about, the book of departure, is coming into that consciousness, as both you and Nick have said, that consciousness of this is who I am. I am a creator, and leaving that space where I thought that was all that I was. I let the space define me. I let the entrapments of what Egypt was define me. I let the entrapments of greed and glitter today confine me. I let anything that confines me today, thinking that I'm better than somebody else, believing that money is the be all and the goal. All of that is an entrapment. It's a cramped space. It's an Egypt in a sense. And so
Yes.
Exodus is the coming out from all of that, discovering and becoming aware of who I am, and then living from that knowledge rather than the previous baggage that I allowed to define how I am and how I should be.
Thank you. Beautifully said, Barbara. And if I can piggyback off what you guys have said, look at us. Look at our journey. Look at how you started off and where we are now. And see that, as Barb said, this thing that I have made space for, I made room for, I see that that is not who I am at all. It was designed for the purpose of bringing you here. It was designed for the purpose of you seeing that this is not me. This had a purpose to push me on my journey, make me take that first step. But I walk away from that. And I feel the space as George talked about the 7. I feel that space because I'm creating space for truth now. If I walk away from something and I say this is not it, then I fill the space with truth. I make more room for truth. I make more room for understanding. I make more room for becoming, because I am constantly creating myself. I am creating myself because I recognize that I am Elohim, and I am moving with all desire to be filled with truth. Make sense? So again, to pull this in too, when the wrestling, Israel, we talked about the wrestling. Do not see any of these things, Egypt, Israel especially, as being a physical place. This is talking about a journey, a spiritual transformation. Okay? Good discussion. Anyone else? Excuse me. So again, and I'm kind of looking at this, and if I skip something that you want to discuss, anybody can bring it up and say what you want about it. Please do help bring clarity to all of this. I'm just trying to hit some key points and look at this from the perspective of the whole, as to describe who and what we are and what we're seeing. Because it talks about in verse, he says, verse 8 says, and a new king arose over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, behold, the people of the sons of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come, let us deal wisely with them, or else they will multiply in an event of war. They will also join themselves to those who hate us and fight against us and depart from the land. So they appointed taskmasters over them to afflict them with hard labor, and they built for Pharaoh storage cities. Okay. This is all the creator. This is all the creator. I'm put in a position where I cry out. I am put in a position where I see that the beautiful cities, the beautiful American dream, if you have it, all of these things were never meant for me. I'm put in a position to take a close look at that and to open my eyes to see where I am. Listen to what he says. He says, the sons of Israel are mightier than we. This is not talking about a physical strength. This is a recognition. This is a recognition of something that he does not quite understand, but he knows that if he doesn't do something about it, that he's going to see a transformation to his land. He said they will join themselves to those who hate us. In other words, those who they will join themselves to those who are not greedy. They will join themselves to those who are also seeking truth. They will join themselves to move in the direction of truth. And he says, and they will leave our land. They will no longer think like us. They will no longer value the things that we value. They will no longer have our awareness for religious concepts. They're going to move beyond that. So we increase the task on them, thinking that that increasing the task is what's going to break them, but increasing the task is what pushes them closer to truth. And as we have talked about this, we stand here today from every direction. From every direction. What do I mean by that? I mean that as long as man has been in the earth, there has been those who seek truth. There are those who have been oppressed. There are those who have been beaten. There are those who have been persecuted simply because of the color of their skin. What they did not know is spiritual energy. Because in destroying, trying to destroy anyway, masculinity, you try to destroy the identity of the family. You try to destroy the culture. You try to destroy the values of the people. You try to take away the community value out of it because you think that if I keep the feminine energy, you think that I can control her because I can marry her into other beings. I can sell her off into other properties. I can have her to have children with other nations. That it is not the same. But what you don't see is the spiritual part of this. The word sons, the Hebrew word for it is bane. It's pronounced bane, but it's B-E-N. The feminine for daughter is bath, B-A-T-H. But they both mean to build, to establish, to erect something. So that which you try to destroy multiplies. Or the midwife means to hear, to bring forth, to beget. So a midwife is both masculine and feminine. It talks about he or she who stands in, well, they were women, but spiritually it represents both, is what I'm saying, both energies. So it's talking about to stand in the gap of life. She is standing in the gap of one life form and bringing it into another. When the midwife says, I'm not going to do this thing, that what they're doing is looking at this thing and listening to, it said that they feared God more. In other words, this is bigger than me. If I look at myself as a midwife and I say that we are midwives, what I'm saying is we are the ones who are expendable. We are the ones who do this because it is needed. And expendable doesn't mean what, that I wish us to be destroyed. But the expendable is I'm going to do this, even if it costs me my life. I'm going to do this, even if I have to stand by myself. This needs to be done. This is not just a job. This is not an occupation. This is a calling, if you will. This is an opportunity. So this whole thing is spiritual. And by trying to destroy African masculinity was an attempt to destroy the family, was an attempt to cut off a people, was an attempt to stop a nation. The man, as they believe, was just the religious part of the social building part of it, or the inheritance part of it, but it was much more than that. You are a protector. You are a covering. And even when you look at the inheritance part, it wasn't so that I have more than you. It was because I had the responsibility of taking care of you. I had the responsibility of being leadership and standing up for my family. I had the responsibility of being one with femininity and bringing balance to who we are. So these verses to me not only speak to us, they speak to where we are today, and they speak. Let me, because it's something I was going to forget. I mentioned the midwives. The one puah means to glitter or to shine, to glow. The other one, shifra, means to be fair, to be beautiful. In other words, balance. So the midwives here, as the role that I am saying that we have, you are to maintain your balance. You are to maintain balance because we are the ones, as has been stated on a number of occasions, who learn what prayer really is and learn how to meditate. We are the ones who bring about awareness and understanding who we are, so that understanding can be in the world and available to everybody. We are the ones who go back and look at, can you guys mute for me, please? We are the ones who look in the take a look at who we are and collapse this thing called time, and look at the fact that I am the one who stands in the gap for those who are have come before us and who desire truth and understanding, and those who are coming after us who are yet to be born. I stand at the birth canal for the human. I stand at the birth canal for those who are transforming from humanity to their spirits. We are the light. We are the balance. And as George stated, this first Saturday of this new year, it is no coincidence where we are in this new year. Inhale who we are. Inhale your empowerment, even though we don't understand all this. There's so much more we don't understand. There's so much more to learn. But that doesn't mean that you don't trust who you are. That doesn't mean, as Nick said some time ago, that you set your heart and your mind on truth, on understanding, on love and peace, and you live. You live. You don't have to mentally think those things every time you have a thought. But let that be the desire. Let that be who you are. Let that be the 70 that you are full of, that you are overflowing with. And you step into, because if you're at 7, that means you're about to go into something new. So as you go into this something new, go into it with the understanding, a refreshing of enlightenment, a trusting of who I am, a trusting of this journey, a trusting of the fact that I have journeyed from Israel to, from Joseph to Israel, which means I still have those tendencies in me. But all of that is to keep me moving forward. Okay? Questions or comments, y'all?
Good morning, Ron. This is Evelyn.
Hey, Evelyn.
Thank you for what you just said, everybody. I think society sleeps on, we don't give midwives the recognition they deserve. And I looked up the meaning of the midwife. Let me get back there. It was talking about spiritual direction. Gosh, I lost my page.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Here it is. It says midwife of the soul, or soul midwife, which is a metaphor for spiritual direction. It's more to what we see on the surface with the midwife, because she's witnessing the birth of a new soul coming into this realm. So
Yeah.
can we elaborate more on the midwife? That's my
Well,
question.
yeah, that's you. I think you just did a beautiful job in doing that, setting that spiritual direction. And as I was saying, I see us as the one that stands between these two different types of life. And one means to glitter, to shine, or to brighten, and the other one means to be fairer or to be beautiful, and beauty means to bring about balance. So as you just said, spiritual direction, we are the ones who set that direction. That is what, excuse me, Evelyn. That is what we are attempting to do. That is what we're attempting to do, even when we're not on this channel together. Through our meditations, through our desires, this has grown so much farther, so much deeper than Evelyn. This is not a Ron thing anymore. This is mankind. And we've grown past our disdain and of the actions of certain people and how people interpret God even in this earth. And we move to a point where we desire to be the ones that set direction. We desire to be the enlightenment. Can anybody else add to that? So it makes more sense, please, before I give it back to Evelyn.
Sure. I just wanted to add that in terms of the spiritual responsibility of a generation of people who act as a midwife or as a consciousness that is helping to bring about a next generation or a new consciousness into the earth, it also applies in that sense. So a group of people across the earth who are on a similar wavelength, so to speak, are helping to bring about the sort of new kind of awareness and consciousness that will be present in the earth as we make our way through this period of transition that we've spoken about so much. And I just wanted to sort of add that sense of a midwife. So exactly what Ron has been saying, what we've been speaking about, but not only within our own selves does it apply, it applies to sort of the generations of the earth, which is the sort of collective representation of a particular type of consciousness as it is moving into the earth as the old one is moving out. And midwife in that sense is the sort of wise woman who knows what is supposed to come into the earth and how to help it get here as smoothly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I love that. That's why it takes off.
And Ron, this is the and this is the significance of this too. It's the feminine energy that's ushering or bringing that soul into this realm. I've
Yes.
never heard of a male, the masculine energy helping that soul to come into this realm. It's always the feminine energy. And I know it's more to that than what we're talking about, but it's just a thought that I had while Nick was saying that.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted to say.
Beautifully
Thank you.
said. Beautifully said. Let me clarify something, and thank you, Nick, because I didn't see it from that perspective, but that was beautiful. When I say we are the midwives, I'm saying we have moved to a point. I can't remember in somewhere in the scripture where it talks about there will in heaven or whatever in the new world there will not be husband or wives or whatever. All it is saying is you move to a point where you are no longer masculine or feminine. You are everything. You are balanced. And when I call us the midwife, it's coming from the same place, the same energy where I'm talking about Israel not being a physical place. These are talking about mindsets. These are talking about transformation. So the movement that I'm saying here, I have learned, although the striving of being Israel is I still battle my masculine side, but at the same time, I'm releasing that. My desire is to be spiritual. So that's what we're describing, and you're absolutely right. Midwife is 100% feminine. It is a spiritual thing. But I'm not talking about gender here at all. Okay? And that is why the masculinity could not be destroyed. We're talking about what it takes to bring about balance. What it takes to bring about balance.
Yeah, and Ron, I think when you mention in terms of what brings about balance, this speaks about, the 7 principles of Ma'at, where we talk about balance, we talk about order, we talk about arrangements, we talk about, again, being able to see that, the cosmic mother, is back on the throne. And I think that if we can appreciate the womb seed in terms of realizing the importance of femininity and looking at it in terms of that balance of that womb seed, that's, the beauty that we are not looking at it in terms of gender, but looking at it in terms of the spirit of who we are, the characteristics of who Elohim is, the characteristics of in terms of who Ptah is. And I think that when we can see it, in that spiritual enlightenment, it gives us appreciation for the oneness that we are, because we have both our, mother and our father in us, in terms of the natural, birth, but there's a spiritual connotation in terms of us being able to now see it in that consciousness that Nick spoke about in terms of our higher self or our divine self. So those are my thoughts, in reference to what you mentioned. I'm done if there's any questions.
Excellent, excellent. Any questions, y'all, comments?
Ron, this is Angela. Can you repeat when you said at the beginning, you said that you was looking, you thought it was something about Ptah?
The word there in verse 15, one of the midwives, that name is Puah, how is it? It's Pooah is how it's pronounced, or Puwah. And I saw Ptah when I first looked at it, and so that took me down a wormhole trying to link and I couldn't find it. But by then, I was so interested in what I was reading till I saw, okay, that got my attention so that we could discuss this. But yeah, I thought those two words were linked. But you bring up an interesting point, Angela, something George just said as well. We talk
Yeah,
about
'cause oh, I didn't mean to cut you out. What I was gonna say was, yeah, 'cause I think you going down the right hole when it ain't no rabbit hole, because the ship Ra is like RAH is Ra, but it's spelled another way, RA, when you look it up. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I think you might be right. At least I feel that way with you.
well, you know, I was just being honest about it though. I could not find a connection. Uh, I could not find a connection in those. But as I said, and if I ever do or anybody, we'll discuss it. But I did not see a connection. But I just thought I'd mention that to you. Maybe I shouldn't have because it might have been a little confusing. But I think the beauty of this, as George just said, and Nick just said, one of the examples of where we are is the Creator is allowing us to bring two things together that, you know, we're looking at the scriptures and getting details and looking at the Kemetic teachings and bringing those things together and pulling truth out of the scriptures as to where they were copied from, or what they originally meant. So the names have changed because there was no Abraham, Isaac, and Sarah in Africa. There were no, you know, Benjamins and all those things, but the truth is still there. And the beauty of it is, as again, my using these words metaphorically, as midwives, we're pulling the truth out. We're birthing what's supposed to be birthed from these scriptures that ties in to the Kemetic teachings that we have talked about and continue to talk about for so long. Okay. So thank you, Angela, for bringing that up. I was talking about my journey to getting to where we are today, and but I may have been better off not mentioning that portion of it because I hope it did
No,
not cause any confusion.
no, it was. It didn't cause no confusion. It was just like you was opening something up. It wasn't no confusion. No.
Okay,
Good. Thank
thank
you.
thank you. I guess my point is to tie in to let us see as you inhale, as you exhale, and as that alarm clock goes off tomorrow morning or Monday morning or whenever it goes off, and you step out into the world and you see this and you see that, that we do not forget who we are. We do not waver in that whatsoever. Uh, this is a new year. It is a year. It is a time. It is an opportunity that we are responsible for. We ushered this in this manner. In what manner are you talking about, Ron? Because the time was going to continue to roll anyway. Well, go back and tie in what Nick and George and Barb have said to you all along, the spiritual significance of these, the whether or not it's talking about the age of Aquarius or the sixth, eighth sense and all these other things we talked about. You brought all this together. It is no coincidence. If it were not for the pandemic, we would not be on this phone. We brought all this together. So this new year is yours. Nothing can overpower what you have brought together. Being Elohim, being Ptah, whichever is easier for you to see. So when we um, pull all this together, and in those moments that you have to inhale and exhale, just remember who you are. You don't have to remember these lessons verbatim. Just feel the vibration that is in you when we have these discussions, and let nothing shake you. We're at a beautiful time. This is a good time to be alive. So,
I have another question.
of course,
So when we speak certain things, or when we speak, do we create portals? Because we were talking about portals that was being opened, and they always been opening. But anyway, when we speak, are we opening portals? When we go through buildings, are we going through another portal?
I say yes, but I say it this way, and somebody correct me. Yeah, hold on, Nick, I get you in just a second, and you correct me if I'm wrong. Not just through speech, but with your desire. Your desire creates as much as your words. And speech is not always just speech, a verbal words coming out. Nick, help me out.
No, I agree. And Evelyn, based on my own understanding and experience, I would say when we speak, it's a bit, maybe a better way for describing it. My own understanding would be it would be like you open channels or tune to certain frequencies, and depending on the intention, depending on the mindset behind the words that you choose to speak, that opens up a certain pathway or channel to that vibration, which is then expressed behind the words that you speak. So it's similar, I would say, but it is very much a process of drawing down from a high place, so to speak, and giving birth to that thing in the low place. And I say that word low without the negative connotation. It's just the relative way of describing. But your consciousness, your awareness is ultimately the portal to all those realms that we don't see on a mundane level. And the process of speaking, thinking, etc., draws from those. And the more aware we can become of the sort of what goes on in a deeper part of our awareness or our consciousness, the better we can be aware of those places from which we are drawing down, even unconsciously as we speak, if we speak unconsciously. So that's how I would
So
describe
Nick, when we do that, it's all internal. Am I not correct?
Oh yeah, I mean everything begins
Or is it?
internally.
Okay.
I just wanted to add one more aspect to what we've been talking about. It talked about Pharaoh fearing the birth of the male sons because he kind of perceived that males would offer that future physical resistance to them. But he did not take into consideration the power that the female, that feminine gender would bring to spiritual resistance. So there's physical resistance and there's spiritual resistance. And spiritual resistance will always overcome physical resistance every time. And so this is sort of symbolic when he talked about the males and the females. It's sort of symbolic of the role that that feminine aspect of who we are brings to bear in terms of balancing out who we are. So Pharaoh did not conceive of that. He only thought of what he saw with his eyes, physically, what would happen if these males who were born would attack us, and not knowing the power behind those physical males in terms of the spiritual, feminine aspect of who they are.
See, that's why, again, it takes all of us. I looked at this and I drew the same conclusion. Everybody wants to attack the African male. If they understood spirituality, they would be trying to stifle the female and not the male. Because when you look at the male, you see it from the outside. You see it from with your eyes, as Barb said. But I guess to make sense of all that, if you had the ability to see it internally, you wouldn't be destroying anything anyway. But I agree with you 1,000%. Thank you.
Can I add something to that as well?
Yes, sir.
Just my own understanding. And of course, the feminine and women are attacked, to be sure. But the reason you seek out and destroy the masculine resistance to ignorance and chaos, etc., is because that forms the, how should I say, the tip of the spear in terms of the push for change. When that masculine sort of identity is operating within a righteous context, a spiritual awareness. And it's very easy to confuse all of us, but the strength of the masculine principle is what is destroyed first, because it is that strength that opens the gateway for the feminine to then sustain that change in terms of the spiritual and metaphysical principles, and also in terms of us physically, men and women, to the extent we are incarnations of those principles. But to speak, I use this term very somewhat loosely and slightly facetiously. That is why the sort of Illuminati, white supremacist, powers that be, negative elite, whatever you want to call them, seek out and destroy Black masculinity first, and then secondarily attempt to manipulate or co-opt Black femininity. But as I said, to be sure, Black women are attacked and destroyed as well. But the driving force behind the sort of revolutionary impulse against that chaotic insanity is held more strongly in the collective identity of men or masculinity. And that is why the tip of that spear is cut off, is blunted when that identity is sought out specifically to be destroyed for the reason that it plays, or for the role that it plays in resisting that sort of oppressive force. Thank you.
Thank you.
So
You
Ron,
got
I
it.
have a question
Yes,
with
ma'am.
what Nick just said.
Mhm.
In the scriptures where it says that the enemy, I'm not sure, I'm not a scripture quoter, but it says something comes like a roaring lion to seek to kill and destroy. Is that the European mindset? And I know that can be in all of us as well. But that mindset, is that what Nick just described as why the feminine and the masculine, the African, is trying to be suppressed or either destroyed?
Can
That's my
anybody
question.
help out there? Because I'm trying to remember the scripture. I'm not sure if that's talking about the same thing or not. Does anybody have
Yeah,
an
no.
answer to that?
I don't remember where that is from, but the general symbolism, uh, it would depend on how it's being used, I guess. But the general symbolism of the roaring lion is the the masculine strength behind that. In terms of how we generally think about that, yeah.
So you're saying yes to my question?
I'm saying I don't know. Just the general symbolism of the roaring lion is something I understand within the context of that question, but I would need to know where or from the scriptures that is coming from to know what that means or what it's referring to.
Well, normally I'm ready, but I'll find it.
That's okay.
Good morning. This is Kathy. I think that scripture speaks to, it says something like, for the devil the adversary goes about as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. And if you look at it from in the context of what it's saying, it's adversarial thoughts. And any thought that does not line up to the principles of Mayat and what we're studying now are adversarial thoughts. So if you look at it from that point of view, Evelyn, then the answer to your question is yes, because the European mindset is definitely adversarial thoughts. That's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Question answered.
Thank you. Anyone else? I had two things that came to mind why Nick was talking, while you guys were talking. Keep in mind that we look at hardship and these scriptures are words on a page that allows us to become aware of the energy that's in us. So they become alive when they become alive in us. When we recognize that just like these words on a page, there's nothing that's really external. So by studying them, by understanding them, by embracing them, we understand and embrace who we are. And so this is an awakening. These words have been on these pages for hundreds of years, and they are just now waking up because they're being seasoned and be eaten in edible bites so that they become nourishment to us, and we are bringing life to them. The thing that when we look at hardship, whether it's something we read about or something we're going to see in the paper this afternoon, recognize this. If the Israelites, because of Joseph, who had favor, if they stayed in favor and were treated like royalty, do they ever seek God? Do they ever turn to seek God? So as we look at ourselves and as we were brought to a land out of a Cabelon, we were put in ships and we were brought over here. If we were not brought over here, if we were not put in the jaws of death and despair and given opportunity to express ourselves through prayer, would we be seeking God? Where would this all be? Where would we be? So as we go into this new year, we see the necessity of where we are and what we're doing. And please also see the responsibility of not only being the one that prays for change and to move man's heart, but also being the one that has helped create this. Okay? We're in a good place. But Nick made me think about something as he was talking, and I want to ponder on it, and it may be for another discussion. During slavery, the slave masters would beat or kill one or two of the men in front of all the slaves to make them take notice. And the women would take notice, and the women would also use that vision to help them keep their children in a certain place, in a certain mindset. And I had never thought about that till I listened to you guys talk today, of that, looking at that from a spiritual perspective. Was that a part of femininity helping masculinity discover his feminine side? And maybe that's for another discussion, but that just kind of jumped in my head. They weren't thinking that. The thought was survival, but I'm just questioning it from a spiritual perspective. That thought just came to my head. But like I say, that's another discussion. I hope this made sense to you. Again, write it down or send a text or something, and we'll be happy to discuss it. But embrace who we are. Embrace this year. There's nothing to fear. There is nothing to fear. Not to say that things are not going to happen, because we know they are, but recognize who we are. And we are not just going to be, you're not in a place anymore to merely be reactive. The very energy and power that brings us on day after day after day and opens our eyes to this shows you that we are proactive. We are making changes. So you are empowered. You are empowered to be, whatever it takes. Okay? But thank you. Appreciate everybody's thoughts. Great discussion, your comment. Love your energy. And if there are no more thoughts and questions, we'll kind of pause until tomorrow morning. Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New
Thank
Year.
you. Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.